Well, I grew up in Apex and have lived here most of my life, except for just being away in college on 2 different occasions. Um, so the thing that sticks out in my mind as being historically important is 1970 was the first year of integration. And Apex is so different now than it was then. Um, and I was the first class at A.V. Balcom, and we were predominantly white. We had 2 or 3 black kids in our class that I never thought of it at that age as why it was that way. But NAACP actually tried to get some kids, they trained them and it said, you know, we're going to try this and see how you can adapt, how you can, with people that are different from you and people that might not always be kind to you. So that was that way from 1st through 5th grade. And then in 6th grade, that was the first year of integration. And before that, of course, it was the doctrine of separate but equal, but it was never equal because although the black kids did have the Apex Consolidated School here, they were given second-hand books and that sort of thing. So it was not equal. And I never really knew where all the black kids went to school. You know, I didn't even think about it. And I think the reason that it ultimately worked, and Apex was about 50% black and about 50% white, very different from now, is that we all had a relationship. We knew each other. It was a very agrarian economy, and we all worked together, mostly in tobacco. But there were dairy farms around, and sweet potatoes. Anyway, we all worked together. My parents had a chicken house, and we had 2 really wonderful women, Alberta and Lunera, that helped with the chickens and also with helping with the family. They were near and dear. And so I think that is a very significant memory for me. And of course, it was a little bit frightening. We didn't know how it was going to turn out. You know, on the news every night you would hear about the civil unrest. There was a lot of unrest associated with Vietnam War, and all of us would watch TV every night at supper time. And so we thought, well, you know, the African American population has a big reason to be upset. It could be violent, you know, but once we integrated, it wasn't. And I have to really say that I think that had to do with our ministers that were in Apex. I remember we had Bill Newman was our minister at the Apex United Methodist Church, and he invited black kids to come to our church. And likewise, some of the white kids from our church went to the African American churches. So I think, you know, everything starts with an individual with a small step of kindness. And then we knew each other. And, oh, well, there's Catherine. She's in my class. I know her. Her mom works with my mom. And so it worked. And we didn't have student council that year. We had human relations council. And I remember being on that. I remember having my first African-American English teacher and my first African-American principal, Mr. Keck. There's the great, of course, I was just in 6th grade. So after that, a lot of the population was shifted from Apex to Cary, and I was caught up in that, even though the impetus was to get more African American kids in Cary because their population was still mostly white. So from Holly Springs on, we got bused early in 1971 to Cary. So, but I think it was eye-opening, and even to this day, the reason I am thinking back to it now is because one of my friends, Doris, my childhood friend, her mother worked with my mother, called and asked if I would help out with the sign to commemorate Apex Consolidated, which is now Apex Elementary. And I just think about that was a Rosenwald school. It was a school that, you know, the African American population, the Baldwin family donated the land for that school, and then it became an African American school. It was so important for the kids there. And then it became a school where black kids and white kids came together. And then as time has gone on, there are kids of multiple ethnicities at that school. So I think it's just amazing, and I hope that you know, Apex continues, and I know it does continue to be a town with lots of different ethnic diversity. But that's my childhood memory that sticks out the most to me as being historically significant. So. The thing that makes Apex home really is family, you know, and friends. And for me, you know, my family goes back to Revolutionary War. So my mother would say, she'd be very proud of this, Captain Etheldred Jones, he had 20,000 acres, you know, in Wake County. That would be her deal. But, you know, so we go back a long ways. But it, even though, you know, Tim and I have lived different places, but we always thought of Apex as home because it's where our parents were, at least our mothers grew up, and it's where we've raised our kids. You know, those are things. The downtown, you know, it's nostalgic. You know, it's a place where we worked in tobacco growing up. You know, we went to school here. All those things make Apex home, you know. And I think the people are just so welcoming, and you know, neighbors, you know, connections, that's what makes Apex home. You know, it's the challenge for Apex is to really maintain that small town charm, and but it's going to grow. You know, it's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. I am just delighted to see all the different ethnicities. We have a lot of Indian neighbors. Tim and I were, one time we heard fireworks and we said, "What's going on? It's not 4th of July, it's Diwali." You know, so I think that for Apex's potential is to just continue to be welcoming and to incorporate different types of people and ethnicities, cultures, and make it our own. What I'd love to see is lots of greenways, you know, continue to just make us able to interconnect with greenways and things like that. Because I think the more you can get people outdoors, the healthier of, and happier of a population that you'll have. I'm on that Fairview Community Board, and so my grandmother, I don't remember the details, but she did purchase, there was a schoolhouse there, and my grandmother taught there. She came from Leicester and went to Boston to school and then came back to Apex. That's how I ended up here, basically, is because she married somebody, a Jones from here. But so when the school systems merged and the Fairview kids came to Apex, she started teaching at Apex. But the community had a chance to buy that building, and so they did, and that was the community building for a lot of years. And you know, they raised money to buy it by selling those little box lunches, you know, and I think my grandfather bought hers. You know, that's kind of this whole story. But I think they bought it for like $3.50 or something, you know, and so it's still a community building. Over the years, you know, my mother was part of that, and they would have barbecues and what. My dad started the Fairview Fire Department out there because at that time there were tobacco barns and they would catch on fire, and you know that they would go like that. So they used those burners in the bottom of the barn, and so. You know, that he started that. It's still going now. It's, you know, it's part of, it's going to be scooped up into the county, but it's still going. It's still in that same building right now. So yeah, so that was in the Fairview Community Club is still there, still going. The community is not the same as it was. People don't identify with it much anymore because people are from everywhere now. But for a long time, that was a close-knit community. And I've got my grandmother's diary, which is real interesting because in I think it was a January, how times have changed. This was like 1909 or something. She talked about how she was so hungry and she killed her first squirrel that day. So at that time she was single and the teachers had to board, and it's very, very interesting and fascinating how things have changed. She talked about kids couldn't make it to school because the stream was too high because of all the rain, and so yeah, really, the diary's fascinating.